Hello everybody, this is Dusty Circuit here, and this is going to be like the series that I did before about all my builds and all the things I built on Autcraft and my history and all that, but only this time it's going to be about what I did on ACO. And I have let's say I have a lot of interesting events and also builds to talk about on ACO. And first this is just gonna be kind of an introduction because I don't know if how many of my viewers are new to Autcraft or don't even really know what ACO is or Autcraft Obsidian is all about. So I'm gonna here's my explanation here. So, well, Autcraft is basically the Minecraft server for children with autism and their families, which has been created and hosted by none other than Stuart Duncan, or of course we know him as Autism Father. And that server has been great for children and their parents to play along with their children, and it's like, I mean, in fact, there are plenty of parents that do play on Autcraft with their children, which is really nice to see. But for some older players, many of the rules on Autcraft, which are in place to keep the kids safe, are rather limiting, especially to the older player base. It's as far as not being able to swear at all in the chats, and of course AC has a Discord, but it's only for patron members, which from what I remember, I think it's either $5 or $10 a month. I'm not sure, but of course that gives you access to Discord. It used to be more active, but now it's a lot less active because just recently because of Discord's rules and own rules and a certain unfortunate event that I'm not going to discuss. AF basically said no members on the AC Discord under age 13. So that really just leaves it for players in between 13 and 15, or just players that are older than 15 but are not subscribed to ACO or do not play on ACO. But ACO's Discord is a lot more open and more freedom for the individual players. And for those of you who don't fully know all of what ACO or Autcraft Obsidian is about, it's basically Autcraft but with less rules in place. For example, there is no protection rule where you have to have bases 30 blocks apart, and it's like you have to ask the person if they don't mind you building there, and of course if they say yes you can build, or if they no you have to go outside of render distance. And yeah. And another thing is PvP is allowed, but you have to have consent given, players if they say that, yes, I consent to PvP, you can PvP, but if no, then you can't. And of course, also pranking is allowed with consent as well, and there were many different levels of pranking, but a bit later on that was simplified from, I think it was 5 levels to like 2 or 3. And also even now, farms and redstone aren't as limited as they are in AC, but of course you have to make sure your farm does not drop the TPS even when there's many different players on. And while there is no limit on hoppers per se, just you have to be mindful of lag on the server. And also Blue recently had a recommendation of no AFKing unless there's less than 6 players online. And while I wouldn't say that isn't really a hard and fast rule, it is at least a good guideline to follow. And yes, AFKing and AFK pools and AFK fishing are all allowed on ACO. But as long as you're not lagging the server, you are not breaking any rules by AFKing. And that's also part of the reason why I like ACO. And another thing is it's very community driven, like as in this. Most of the current builds that have been, especially during the revival period and even till today, have all mostly been player. Well, all of them have been player builds, and of course the admins still supervise, but all of ACO's public farms, like in the Nether Hub and Spawn, all have been player builds, which really kind of sets ACO apart from AC, where really the admins do everything on behalf of the players. And yeah. And of course, also ACO players can put on events as well, but we have to kind of get like the community to agree on it. But usually the community is very open to new ideas, and also same goes for community farms, but we generally have to keep everything like to what's needed, and also keep lag in mind. And yeah. And generally, most of the rules on ACO are more open than Autcraft, and more player freedom, and mostly trust driven, rather than just have hard limits on everything. And many rules that used to be in place were actually taken away, and still are set that way today because Autism Father trusts the older player base. And one example of that is TNT. TNT used to be disabled where it wouldn't break blocks, but it would still kill mobs. Like you could still use it for traps, but I believe it was in like November or October of 2018. It was, or I think it was 2019. I don't really remember, but that it was enabled, but kind of under the expectation that we don't like just go around just blowing up the world or griefing other other bases, and we more or less just keep it to our own areas and just use it responsibly, and in pranks if it's allowed, and so far we've done pretty well with that. We've never had any incidents, although some players have actually done have blown up TNT as like an outlet for anger and stress, which of course blue does allow that, but it's just not senseless blowing things up or griefing. And we also have a game called Hitman, which is basically where everyone is assigned a target, and you have to hunt your assigned target while you're avoiding your assassin, which is whoever has you as a target. And last man standing wins. Either that or whoever gets the most eliminations. And yeah. And we have many other great events as well. And for that reason, many other reasons, I think ACO really sets ACO apart from AC, and it's a great community to be in, and I can't thank myself enough for joining it. But let's kind of get on with the video. Well, first we're going to go over some history. And well, before I get into the history, I'd actually would like to mention that just quite recently, Mr. Obimage has put together basically it's a map art that's a timeline of all the major events that took place on ACO, going all the way back to when it first opened in, I believe it was like June of 2015, and basically up until fairly recently. And there are many events that were not included on the timeline because there were also some kind of bad things that happened that were that probably if we have everyone remember them, it might make some players upset or whatever. So only really most of the positive events and like major events are on there. But there are probably some of the events I may still discuss because they're just kind of moments for me to remember, and just kind of some of them were kind of significant from my perspective. But if we get to any of the bad things, I'm gonna put more emphasis on the good than on the bad. So it's gonna be much the same as what I said for the previous the Autcraft series. And yeah, so probably in the video I'm also gonna put up the timeline for this portion of the video so you can see it. And anyway, let's start off with ACO's opening. Which was in the 18th of June. That's when ACO first opens to the public. Though basically, pretty much all of ACO's history from this point up until the time that I joined, which was actually about I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was like early May of 2017. Basically, all of the history from the opening up till that point, I've never experienced because I did not join ACO until 2 years after it opened. And really, the main reasons being, when it first opened, I was still very much active on Autcraft, and I even had a couple of very close friends on Autcraft. And Roy, the dilemma was all those friends were younger than me, and I was 16 at the time ACO first opened, and if I remember correctly, I think Mod Killer was 13, and Nin or Ninjago I think was 11 or 12. Well, probably not remembering exactly their age, but it's kind of an approximation. So, if I was to join ACO at about that time, I would basically have to join alone, and I'd have to leave my friends on Autcraft until they get old enough to join. And while I could have done that, I could just kind of join the server and just experience the grand opening and kind of the dawn era as shown on the timeline. But another reason at this point that kind of kept me from joining ACO was the fact that it is pay to play. So to join ACO, you have to have a monthly subscription of $5 a month. And while for most people it's no big deal, but for me at the time, I was really just kind of in question whether I can join or not because I was 16 and did not have my own job. Well, many teenagers actually have jobs while they're still in high school. I wasn't one of them, and I didn't even receive allowance, and so if I was to join ACO, I would have to ask my parents if they would pay for it for me. And for a while, I just didn't bother asking because I just feared that they would say no. And the other thing was I was also very involved on Autcraft. I had a lot of projects that was ongoing. Like I had at the time ACO opened, I was in the second, no, not the second. It was the third base that I built on Autcraft, the underwater base that was like built kind of off away in the ocean, away from that island that Kyla was that Kyla's first base was on, and that's kind of how we became friends, sort of, and also I just had other projects ongoing, like I had a few farms I was working on, and I was even building farms for other players, and also on top of that, I was in high school and I had a lot of homework to do, and it's like I'd have to study and for tests, and it was just like for me to take on playing on another server would be kind of probably would have been a bit stressful for me. So I just kind of decided just to put it on the back burner for a little while. And if we fast forward to around I think late in 2016, Mod Killer just started expressing his desire to join Autcraft Obsidian because he he really wanted to be able to PvP. Like, well, if I remember correctly, one of the biggest reason Modkiller wanted to join ACO was to be able to PvP, because I guess he was on other Minecraft servers and he was, I'm just gonna say he was just kind of tired of he also was getting tired of a lot of the rules and limits on Autcraft, and he told me that when he turns 15 he really wanted to join ACO. And then, but by that point I said, well, I'll join ACO then. And so basically me and Modkiller could join at the same time. So basically around I don't remember what day, but around early May 2017, I log on to the server for the first time. And of course, this is basically what I saw when I first logged in. This was well, right now this is the old spawn, like the OG spawn, but this was the spawn when I first joined ACO. Like, this is before Atlantis, before the revival, before the second spawn being built in the new Nether hub and all that. And AF's Let's Play was still in session, but unfortunately for me, it soon came to an end about 2 weeks after I joined. Because AF, I guess, just got busy with life, and well, initially it was because he got absolutely swamped with whitelist applications for Autcraft, because there was some Autcraft was really making a lot of basically Autcraft suddenly, I guess as a result of his live stream, possibly it started making a lot of different news pages and got so much press from sites like PC Gamer was one, and I don't really remember all of them, but a lot of these different websites were just like father create server for autistic children and blah blah blah. And just like headlines like that, and you know. And so basically, this video is going to be very rambly, so I apologize in advance. And if you want to go get like your snacks or whatever, just to keep watching the video, feel free to do that. And this video is beginning to kind of run on, so I'll just move on to the next topic. So, first I went over when and why I joined, and so the next part is how basically is my first base, which I'm gonna. A lot of the portals that are got broken because at one point this new spawn got corrupted and not all the portals got relinked. So like this portal right here, I'm not gonna go through it. Like last time I went through it, it put me inside it put me underground and I was suffocating, so I'm not gonna go through that. Neither any of the other portals around here. But oh, before we move on to that, I want to go over a little bit about this spawn. And so it was created by lulz Lozerex. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but we just call him Lols. And he basically he built this whole spawn. And from my understanding, ACO kind of opened with this spawn, and of course, as you can see, it's like very like it's very kind of reminiscent of like ancient Greek ruins, and it's just it has that was basically the theme behind it, and there even was like on the ACO forums there was even this whole like server constitution like about like how like basically like it's probably like probably 3 whole pages of like all how the servers to rerun, like all the rules and how events should run, and there's even like I'm not even really sure how it all is supposed to work because this was before I joined this ACO, but there's even this whole thing where I think there was like different like buttons placed around the spawn, and if you find them, you'd get some kind of like message popping up in chat, and it was just like you found the philosopher something, and I think even like for players who have done very well, like much like AC's AF sword, there was like a philosopher pickaxe that was given out to players who would really stand out. But of course now that's been replaced by the Obsidian bow, which is a bow that has all the enchantments on it, including Unbreaking and Mending, which is not possible in vanilla. And basically, Autism Father just wasn't exactly very. He didn't really support all of Lowell's ideas. Like he thought this whole spawn, while really impressive, was just rather kind of overdone and like it's like too big, and it's like literally the whole protection for the spawn. I don't know. Like this is kind of my mini map, and like no joke, like the protection, like even though this is the whole spawn over here, the protection, the region that protects spawn probably goes out like this far, like it's and goes all the way around like here. Like hopefully you can see my mouse cursor, but it's like that big. Like damn, like that's just huge. And it's like you like literally your only option to escape spawn is either walk the 2,000 blocks to escape, or there's also these teleport stations where you press a button and then it would put you at a basically you press the button, and before it used to just spawn you on the station, but now something changed with the command blocks where now it spawns you up in the air. It's like where it spawns you up in the sky, but of course a lot of players are like that's dangerous or whatever, but I found that rather advantageous for Elytra. It's like literally, it's like I'd spawn up in the sky and then I'd be able to fly off wherever I wanted to go. But at one point, these actually had slime blocks that would make you bounce up, but of course, but in a certain event that a lot of players prefer not to be remembered, but I might go over later in the series that these were replaced with water. But it's a bit off the subject. And so basically for the longest time, like 95% of this whole spawn just went unused, and it was rather confusing to new players, as it's like there's just so much going on, and no one knew where to go. So, and it was like literally the only things that ever would be used were maybe some people that had bases where the teleport stations were, and of course the nether portal and the end portal, and occasionally people would use the wither arena, which is in that giant building in front of me, but at one point that AF turned that off because well, there was a button inside where it's basically how it would work is you'd go inside, and then there was like a button where you'd press and it would spawn a wither that you would kill. But Autism Father wanted to turn that off because players would just keep spamming it, and it would spawn so many withers that it lagged the server. And I think at one point it was turned back on, but AF turned it back off and it was never re-enabled, or I think it was the command blocks broke, but it was never fixed. And now I'm stuck. So I'm gonna have to use /spawn to get out. And just kind of getting back to this, you know, basically this spawn, while it was cool, many players found it confusing. And eventually it was replaced with a new spawn that we're going to talk about a couple of videos later on in the series. But we still have a lot to go over. And unfortunately, the portals here are no longer functional. Like, I tried them, but that other one basically took me to my death, so I don't trust any of the portals here except for the teleport stations. So anyway, without further ado, let's actually go on to my very first base. And before I actually go to my first base, I want to kind of start out kind of in front of AF's old base, because I believe this is one of the first areas I actually went to as upon joining ACO. And kind of at this point in time in ACO, this was around kind of mid-2017 or so, and by this point in time, a lot of ACO has kind of become a bit inactive, and like it's kind of been this is kind of the start of a kind of unfortunate decline in ACO's activity, and for a little while, it was just AF's Let's Play that really kept it afloat, and in fact, his base actually became so popular on the server that he just kept getting pranks. Like, AF just got so many different pranks, and it's like literally everyone on the server would flock to his base and give him prank after prank after prank, and it was just it's like it got to the point where Autism Father was spending much more time cleaning up everyone's pranks than actually enjoying the game or working on his base, like I guess any survival Minecrafter would do. And I really kind of felt sorry for him, and eventually this led to him wanting to take a break. And when he came back from that break, he decided to start fresh. Like he built a kind of a brand new, like it's just like a small cabin, nothing really fancy, but and of course he desired nobody give him any help whatsoever. He just wanted to kind of just experience the game as if you're starting over fresh, and I can't blame him for that. But I think he has a portal to that now, but I'm gonna probably still under the assumption he doesn't want the publicity that this base had, and yeah. So let's just head on to the first base I built. If I remember correctly, Autism Father was going to make a guardian farm, but he never got around to it. Okay, so here we are. This is base number 1 here. And if I remember correctly, I would have been watching Hermitcraft. I'm not sure if I remember which season, but it's either season 4 or season 5. I'm pretty sure it was season 5, but Mumbo had a Jumbo, or she was the main YouTuber I was watching at the time, but when he first started on Hermitcraft season 5, for his starter base, he made like an actual dirt house. It's like literally a dirt hut. And kind of when I first built here, just kind of, because I didn't really have any plans for a major base yet, and I just didn't know what else to build. And since I was watching his series at the time, I decided why not I just make a dirt hut, and that's basically what I did. And of course, it's really nothing fancy, just gonna have my storage here. And I believe Modkiller actually left this here. I think he did. And this was, of course, I think this was this head here. I think this was really my first death, or first PvP death anyway. And actually, I think I want to keep this. It's kind of I think I might rename that to first PvP death, or something along those lines. And that I actually got today. I was at the old spawn and I killed a zombie. Literally, it dropped that head. And anyway, I think I was only here for probably just a bit over 2 weeks. And I think I just would have built this, and I would have dug underground to start my first mine, and then I went out to get this wheat that I planted, and I think because I really wanted to get an enchanting table, I started breeding cows, and then I really wanted to get sugarcane next, but at the time, on the day that I was to go get the sugarcane, I think I think I would have actually ventured out to get sugarcane, but I think I died and I lost all of it, but I still needed the sugarcane, so of course, one day Autism Father was on, and I just happened to ask him. I didn't ask him specifically, but I think I asked in the chat, "Hey, do anyone have sugarcane?" And I believe Autism Father was one of the first to reply. And sure, Dusty Circuit, come over to my base. I have a sugarcane farm. And then this is kind of a day for me to remember because I came over to his base and he was actually live streaming at the time. And I came over, I got the sugarcane that I needed, but then I decided to search for his live stream, and I found the live stream, and I also joined the Discord through so back then the Discord was more open than it is today. So and to join, you literally would just have to find the link that was on the forums. I think it was in a post that Lowell's put up, but it took a little bit of digging to find it. But basically, if you found the link, you could join the Discord. But now it's basically the link is given out by the admins after you've gotten the subscription. Of course, for obvious security reasons, but of course, but back then it was it was more open. And kind of later on, and when in the space, of course, I also have chickens over here, which that was mostly so I could get eggs. Because I was going to make a chicken farm, which is still remains, but I kind of stripped the hoppers from it because I needed them for another project. But everything else is still here. It's like literally I just took all the hoppers and the pistons and nothing else, but all the redstone still remains. And this was actually my very first portal that I built, but I don't remember if I never did the mod request or if I did the mod request, but because this was back when Autism Father was the only admin to light portals, he was just too busy and he never got around to lighting it. Or no, I think this actually was lit, but I think at one point it was it wasn't lit, or no, I don't. I think probably it was never lit because AF was busy. And then this is my mine shaft area. So I didn't really get that far in, but that was because kind of later on in that first live stream that I joined when that Autism Father was doing, he started a project that was basically mining out a huge area underneath his base because he had plans to build something underground, and he made it like a big community project, and I saw it as an opportunity. I saw that kind of as a new player on ACO. I saw that as an opportunity for me to get resources and diamonds, etc., and hopefully enough iron to build my very own haste beacon. Because of course AF had set up a haste beacon so that they could mine out the area underground, because this was before TNT was re-enabled, so TNT wasn't an option, and the only option was either just plain pickaxe mining or pickaxe mining with haste 2 and efficiency 5. And of course, I really wanted to get my own beacon, so I saw his project as an opportunity for me to get iron for a beacon. And because I kind of was bored, and this was also before I got that portal lit, I decided I was going to make a minecart tunnel going to his basement. And this was kind of close enough to his base where building a tunnel wouldn't have been too big of an effort. So anyway, let's go along for the ride. And if I remember correctly, I would have gotten all the materials from the tracks and the torches I would have gotten from mining. And just my own resource gathering. And Aquena actually had an iron farm at his base, and of course, he kind of offered it to me for if I ever needed iron. But at this point in time, I chose not to use that because I really also wanted to help Autism Father dig out his basement area, and I decided I kind of just wanted all my iron to come from that. And I believe I actually got just about enough to make a beacon, though I think I still needed about 30 more iron ingots that I had to get from mining elsewhere, but I eventually did get my beacon. And I was able to set up my own mine at a... Actually, I built at a second base that we're going to talk about in another video. Or in the next video in this series. And if I remember correctly, I would have spent about a week or so just like mining out this whole area, like just whenever I had the time to do it. And I think I would have kept I think half the materials I got I would have given to AF, and the other half I cut for myself. And then I think about a week or so passed between that first live stream and the second live stream where I was still mining this out, but of course Autism Father started live streaming, and I think other players would have joined in to help with this. And of course I got to talk to a lot of more players, and both of those live streams those were the first my first opportunities to really get to know a lot of the ACO members on voice. And rather unfortunately for me, after those two live streams, ACO just once again, as I said earlier in the video, took a rather unfortunate decline. Because it's like I was literally I was still in my first month on the server, and essentially I missed out on a lot of the events earlier, and now the server was in decline. And the server was kind of just remain unpopular until later on, when, let's just say, was after the server had updated to 1.13. And let's say couple of certain player sets began to return and everybody else followed suit. And at a start where I want to spoil it for later on in the series. And I would have also met Colgutton shortly after, but once again I want to save that for the next episode. And I don't mean to leave you at a cliffhanger, but this video is kind of getting a bit long, and I think it's actually nearing about an hour in length. So, this has been Dusty Circuit here. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to my history on Autcraft Obsidian, or ACO for short, and remember to rate, comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next future content in the next episode in this series. Bye!